Today, we're talking about finding work when you're over 50. And please remember to follow us, Riff on Jobs, on Spotify and YouTube. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Kim, do you think it's more difficult for someone over 50 to find a job than for people who are younger?
Oh, Alex, that's such a loaded question. I'd love to say no, but in fact, I do believe there is ageism in hiring. Employers will deny it. But picture this, you come into a job interview, you've got a good 20 or 25 years of solid work experience. You probably have maybe some gray hair, unless you dye it, and you probably have a few wrinkles. So they're looking at you and they're thinking, I wonder how much longer this person's going to work. Or maybe they're thinking, oh, wow, with all these years of experience, I bet they're expecting to be paid a lot of money. Maybe we should go with someone younger who we can pay a little less. They might worry about the hit to their healthcare costs because they pay to cover their employees. But if you have an employee who's older, who has healthcare issues, it might cost you more. It's typically, I hate to say this, but I think it's even more difficult for women than it is for men. It's very common to go look at a board member or the chief executives of different companies and you look them up and there's lots more older white men than you find older women. So I do think it's harder for women. Another thing is once in a blue moon, they might have the attitude that, oh, gee, this older person isn't going to be as tech savvy, or they're going to be set in their ways. They're not going to be able to accept change. They won't be up on the latest things like TikTok or whatever it is. So they might worry about your adaptability when you're older. And pretty much that's my answer. Yeah, I think it is a little bit harder to find work when you're over 50.
Thanks, Kim. What are the best ways the over 50 job seekers can find jobs? And is it different, or how is it different for people who are under 50?
So I'll say one thing that is common for anyone looking for work. The most important thing you can do is network, not go online, look for job postings and submit a resume. So let's just establish that, in my opinion, that is the worst way to look for a job. And the best way is to work your network, work with people you know. That's especially important when you're over 50, because what you really have to sell is your experience, your reputation, what you've done in the past. So work the network and let that help you. Then another really important thing, if you're over 50, is research companies. Read about their culture. Go to Glassdoor and other sites like Glassdoor, LinkedIn, ARP.com, and see what it says about those companies and whether they're senior friendly. And I know that being over 50 is you're far from being what's considered senior. But if you're over 60 or getting up there, then you really want to be looking at companies that are friendly to older workers. And there are special job boards that are geared toward older workers. You should definitely look into those. We can talk about those later. I have a list that I can go through with you. But definitely research, take advantage, and see what people are saying about the companies and their friendliness to older workers.
Cool. If I'm an over 60 job seeker and I'm not quite ready to retire, what are my options?
Well, you could look for a job. And I have actually found jobs at over 60. So it's completely viable to just look for a job. But let's say you want to start to wind down, you want to move toward retirement, but still have income. So your options are you can look for part-time work. And there certainly are a lot of jobs that are part-time, or look for a full-time job and maybe come in and negotiate to work part-time and bring the salary down if salary is a concern. You could instead consider independent consulting. So if you have an industry expertise or a particular functional expertise like marketing, sales, finance, whatever it is, you can try to consult in those areas. There's also the option of trying to get a seat on a board, and there are paid board seats that are out there. They're very hard to get, but that is an option. And then finally, freelance work. So whatever that function is, whatever that thing is that you do and you do really well, better than other people, just try to get freelance work doing it. It's very similar to consulting, unless you specifically decide I'm going to be a freelance writer or I'm going to be a freelance web designer. If you pick something very specific like that, then you're specifically looking for that work. But there are also consulting gigs that uh, you can find on a freelance basis through freelancer websites. So that's another option. And of course, the final option, if you're not quite ready to retire, but you don't really need the money, then you should do volunteer work and, help other people less fortunate.
Great. Thanks. What are some key skills that job seekers over 50 should think about acquiring?
Okay, great question. So hopefully, if you've been working for 20 or 25 years, you have some key skills already. You have project management skills, you have communication skills, all these things that are considered transferable. But I would say nowadays, currently, the most important thing you can learn is what the heck is AI? What is Chat GPT? What can I do with it? So learn everything you possibly can about AI and Chat GPT. That is the wave of the future. AI will be displacing workers in the future, but if you're someone who knows how to use it, then you become valuable. So top number one skill, AI and Chat GPT. And then I would say it's also very useful to really understand social media, digital marketing, digital media, web design, graphics, how to post on social media sites, because that's a value you can bring to an organization as a freelancer. And then, of course, project management. I think I said most of us hopefully at least know how to manage things, people and things. So if you don't know that well, then develop those skills. And it's always useful to have business intelligence and analytical tools. And there's probably a long list of other things, but that is top of mind for me.
Sounds good. Are there any specific steps someone should follow during their job search?
Well, this is something where I don't think there's a difference between being over 50 and under 50. If you're looking for a job because you got laid off, then take time, smell the flowers, do a self-assessment, grieve over the loss of your prior job, whatever that is. But if you're just looking for a job for whatever reason, you don't like your current job, or you haven't worked for a while and you want to start working again, the most important thing is that self-assessment is, what do I want to do? What can I do? What have I done before? Sometimes it's a slam dunk. I've been a finance director. I want to work in finance. I want to work a balance sheet. Then you're very specific about what it is you do. Or I've always worked in the healthcare industry and I want to find jobs in that industry. But figure out what it is you really want to do first. And then maybe make some lists for yourself. What do I like about my current job? Or what did I really like about my past job? What did I not like? What do I not want to do anymore? So know what you like, what you don't like, and then think about your values. What types of companies or what companies do I want to work for? I do a lot of searching on a company before I would ever apply to a job. Who are they? What do they stand for? What do they say their values are? What's their mission statement? So figure out what companies are appealing, target them, and then you can go to those companies' websites, look for jobs on their site. What I recommend is always, let's say you decide I want to work for Johnson and Johnson. Well, who do you know there? Go take advantage of LinkedIn and figure out if there's someone at the company you've targeted who you can reach out to and set up an informational interview and find out what it's like to work for that company. Do mock interviews. Let's say you find a job you're interested in, do a mock interview. You can also use AI tools. There are a couple of them out there. That one of them is called Udly. I don't know all of them, but there are tools you can actually leverage to watch yourself being interviewed, to do a mock interview with yourself. I think LinkedIn may also have some tools. So mock interview before you even apply for a job. And finally, the most obvious, it seems very elementary, is make sure that your resume is in ATS format. ATS stands for Automatic Tracking Systems. You want your resume to be readable. You don't want it to get kicked out because you have some fancy graphic in there. Gone are the days when you want an infographic resume that's sharp, that's glitzy, where people go, wow, cool graphic design, I want to hire this person. You just want something that's readable and uploadable. So that's pretty much, those are the starting points. So,
Kim, of the steps you just laid out, which one or two are the most important?
most important, I think I said it, but I'll say it again, is work your network. Personal connection goes 10 times further than a resume. There are jobs that I've applied for in my lifetime where, I'll keep hitting that send button, applying for 3 or 4 jobs, nothing, no bites, nothing. Then I find someone I know at the company and go, hey, I saw this job posted. Can you pass my resume along? And boom, next thing I know, the phone is ringing off the hook. So work the network and then be prepared. Do not ever walk into an interview without having fully researched the company and the people who are interviewing you. So be prepared, work your network.
Thank you. So, what are some of the key areas a job seeker over 50 should stress to differentiate themselves from others?
Definitely accomplishments, so that you can specifically say, I reduced the sales cycle time from a month to 10 days, or something that's quantifiable that you've achieved in prior work. I grew the business X%. I reduced costs by Y, etc. So really your past accomplishments. Definitely stress your experience, within reason, not going too far into 25 years ago when I worked for, McKinsey Consulting, I did X. I wouldn't say that, but stress your achievements, and stress that your comfort with change, that you've been able to adapt and flex. Certainly some stability, that you remained at you were at your last job for 10 years, something like that. And if there's anything unique about you, for me, for example, I used to do stand-up comedy. That is certainly not something that your average employer is looking for, let's say an IT executive. But what the heck, it makes me different. I'm able to find humor in things. So I'm going to maybe slip that into a conversation. But for the most part, I think you stress what differentiates you and your accomplishments.
Those are great points. An over 50 job seeker took time off for personal or health reasons. How can they express their gap to a prospective employer?
So this is also something that, whether you're over 50 and you took time off from working, or whether you're 30 and you took time off to raise children, you need to stress what you did during the time that you weren't working at an employer. Ideally, you use that time to learn and to retool. And you can say, well, I chose to take time off because I wanted to grow my skills and transition from finance to marketing. So I went out and got my social media certification, or whatever that was. Or I took some time off, I earned my PMP, I got my degree in anthropology, whatever it is, to show that you used the time to learn and to improve yourself.
Great. Looking ahead, what can an over 50 seeker expect in the job market of the future, and what should they do to prepare?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think the job market of the future is going to be very different. COVID changed a lot of things. Everyone started working remotely, and now there's an expectation that people can work from home, or that there are hybrid work environments. So you have to be willing to flex. You have to be willing to go into an office. You have to be willing to travel when needed. So demonstrate some flexibility in that regard. But you also definitely need to prepare for the fact that the job market is changing and jobs are being replaced by AI. Companies are having AI generate marketing materials, marketing collateral. So you have to be someone who knows AI so that you can help a company to leverage it. There is going to be a lot of competition, and you will be competing with younger people who are more attuned to current technologies. So be prepared that as you get older, there's more competition for fewer jobs. And, people are living longer, people are working longer. that even further increases competition. It used to be that, by 61, people were taking early retirement, and now people are working up into their 80s and beyond. So be prepared for the fact that you're either competing with workers who've been at a company for a long time and plan to continue to be there, and then the younger generation newly entering the workforce. So it's also really important to have a cash reserve. And I know for some of you, or some of our listeners out there, it may be that you've already lost your job unexpectedly and you didn't have a cash reserve. And, then make sure you're collecting unemployment to help you out. But going forward, when you are working, always set that little bit extra aside for a rainy day.
That's great. We often hear about the over 50 job seeker wanting to do something that aligns with their passions when they're going to get their next gig or their next job. What should an over 50 job seeker do to align their passions when looking for work?
Another great question, Alex. I think the first thing is, don't be afraid to reinvent yourself. I mean, for me, it's, I loved my job. I loved the company I worked for, loved their values, felt that what I was doing really had meaning. I worked in healthcare, and even though I worked on the IT side, I felt that what I was doing, helped us care for patients. However, when it comes to those passions, there are so many things that fired me up. Social justice and advocacy and equality. And those are things that I was always doing on the side while I worked at my job. I worked on a newsletter that was social justice oriented. And when it came time to think about looking for another job, I really did take a step back and said, well, what really fires me up? If in this next chapter, in my next job, I could do what I really love, what would that be? And it turned out that it was really writing, and whether it was writing about social justice, writing about the job market, I figured out that writing was something that I always loved to do. It was always part of my job, but not the main part of my job. So I decided to pursue something that would use those skills. If you have no idea what your passion is, and there are plenty of people who really don't, it's like, gee, I love working out at the gym. Well, okay, maybe something in fitness is your passion. Or gosh, I love to travel. Well, you know what? There are jobs in travel. Maybe you should look into that. If you have no idea, gee, there are things I like, but I don't know, then take something like the Myers-Briggs test, find out your personality type. And then those tests will typically say, if you're an ENFJ, which may not mean anything to you, but that's my Myers-Briggs type, then here are the kinds of jobs that you're suited for. So take aptitude tests and take interest tests and see what comes of it. So that's my
Great
recommendation.
points. Great points, Kim. I've heard that people over 50 have been advised not to show any more than 10 to 15 years of work experience on their resumes. But what happens if you really have good, relevant experience, but it was like 20 years old? What do we do?
Well, Alex, I found myself in that position. I found myself in that position more than once, especially because some of the experience that I had 15 or 20 years ago ties to work that I was looking for. It's like, gee, well, how can I look for a job as a management consultant if the last time I was in that job title was 20 years ago, and it's not going to look relevant? And the best thing I can say is you really should not go back that far in your resume. It makes you look old. It makes your experience look tired and dated. Just, excuse me, think of creating a other relevant experience header on your resume and list those functional things that you did, or maybe list other relevant employers and you list McKinsey Consulting or whoever it was that you think it's important that a potential employer knows that you once worked for McKinsey or whatever that job was. That's my recommendation, is you should not go back more than those 15 or so years, but find another way to get that onto your resume.
I noticed when you talked about other relevant experience, what a great idea. And I noticed you didn't call out to put the years. I think that's also a good gotcha, is just to avoid the putting years so they can't date yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Don't say other relevant experience. In 1996, I worked for, Bob's Bar and Grill. I think you just other relevant experience, Bob's Bar and Grill, McKinsey Consulting, Booz Allen, whatever it is, just other relevant experience. Or you'd say other relevant experience, management consulting for a big five firm or whatever it is.
Good point. You mentioned earlier that networking is really, really important. People have various skill sets in terms of networking. What are the best ways the over 50 job seekers can grow their network?
So hopefully by the time you're over 50, and it's 2023 at the moment, hopefully by now you have a network. You're on LinkedIn, you've connected with past colleagues, current colleagues, your friends, your family, people who might make a good professional network. Hopefully you've done that. If you haven't, then you have to start from scratch. The best thing to do is start building your network while you're working. So if you haven't done it before, just, join LinkedIn, sign up for your basic account, and then think about, oh, I worked with Alex when I was at my last job, and then go look for Alex and do a connection request. And then after Alex accepts your connection request, then drop a note and go, hey, Alex, how have you been? Are you still working for so-and-so? I'm in the job market at the moment. What can you tell me about the company you work for, or whatever it is? But if you've never networked before, start. And then attend networking events. I mean, so for me, I have my undergraduate school alumni association and my grad school alumni association. I'm very fortunate that, Ernst & Young has a great alumni association. So people I used to work with at Ernst & Young, I know that's where you and I connected many, many years ago. So attend alumni events. If they're professional organizations around your skill set, join those. The Project Management Institute, for example, PMI has local chapters. In healthcare, HIMSS, the Health Information Management System Society. So find out what those different networks are that are in your industry or focus area or your college or university, and join those networks and attend events. And that's the best thing I can say. And always keep your network warm, even if you're working and you love your job.
Thanks, Kim. I was wondering if you could share any job search stories about yourself or other people who have found work after 50.
Sure. I've actually found quite a few jobs after 50. Um, and I'm 80 now. Don't I look good for my age? No, all kidding aside. So the first time I got laid off and was over 50, I kind of started looking around at what was out there. And then I did the obvious. I reached out to my former boss, who was now at a different company than where I had worked for him. And that immediately turned into informational interviews, meeting several people at the company. There wasn't even a position at this point. It was just, come talk to us. Let's figure out what we can find for you. And at the same time, the company that had laid me off had positions that we could apply for internally. So I applied for the internal positions, also networked internally within the organization. But, within a pretty short amount of time, I was juggling job offers. I had more than one offer. And it was because I had reached out to a former employer. And kind of as simple as that. I have other stories like that, but we'll use that one.
Super. What can an older person do to generate some income while they're looking for work?
Oh gosh. Well, the obvious. If you're looking for work because you got laid off, apply for unemployment. It's, at least in California, it's not particularly good money, but it's better than having no income. And when you're working, you're paying into unemployment. That's you've paid in and your employer has paid in. So you're not, oh, I don't know what the word is. People talk about, living off welfare, living off the dole. You're really collecting money that you've essentially put in yourself. But the other thing, so let's say that's not an option. there's so many things you can teach, you can train, you can coach, you could be a substitute school teacher. That isn't phenomenal money either, but if there's a subject you could teach, English, for me, English, French, Spanish, I could be a substitute teacher, go get an emergency credential in California. You just have to pass a basic test that is 8th grade level knowledge, and then you could go substitute teach. So that's an option. You could work as a freelancer, and freelance work, again, that's a whole other topic. And I think we'll do a podcast on that next, Alex. But if you want to work as a freelancer, think about what could you do on a freelance basis. Project management, consulting, writing, editing, proofreading, translating, whatever it is. And then there are a bunch of sites out there where you can sign up as a freelancer. There's freelancer.com, there's Upwork, Fiverr, there's a lot, GigX, there's a long list, but get yourself out there. Find out companies that hire part-timers and short-term staff. Robert Half is a great place to look. They used to be a company that placed accounting temps, but they pretty much have project management, accounting, all sorts of job functions. And they're a pretty good site, and they have some good information. So register with sites like that, get yourself listed to do freelance work. There are all sorts of weird, goofy things, like you can sign up to review game apps and you get paid for it. But beware of things like that, because next thing you know, you're signing up to buy more chips, buy more spins on the wheel, buy more things like that. But there are things like that. You can participate in focus groups and get paid anywhere from $75 to $150 for participating in an hour-and-a-half focus group, as long as it's not tied to a company that you work for. So you can sign up, search the internet. You can go dig around for passive income and look for ways to make money. There are so many scams out there that I hesitate to mention that, but there are ways you can pick up little bits and pieces of cash doing focus groups. I've, gone to focus groups for an hour and a half. They give you a sandwich and they ask you about, what kind of soap you buy or whatever it is. So those things are out there. You can look for that.
Okay. Speaking of sites, are there any specific job sites you'd recommend specifically for seniors? Are some better than others?
There are a lot of job sites. There's a whole long list. My favorite is something called retiredbrains.com. That was the most impressive to me. It's not that it just lists jobs, but provides some really good insights. That was a good site. Another site that's really good is AARP.com, AARP. And as you know, you only have to be over 50, I think, to join ARP. And they provide a lot of insights about companies that are friendly for over 50 workers, older workers. And then they can link you to other sites. So that's a good one. There are a couple others. There's something called retirementjobs.com. That's not bad. There's something called workforce50.com. They have job listings. It's pretty much a front door to ZipRecruiter, but it does list those jobs where someone who's over 50 might have an easier time finding work. And there are a few others, but those are the top ones that come to my mind.
Okay. Are there any types of jobs that you recommend people over 50 look for, that maybe they are just wanting to make a little money on the side or do something that is a little bit different than what they do in the past?
That's kind of that's a great question, but at the same time, it kind of bothers me. And the reason it bothers me is because, well, why should the jobs that are out there be different for someone who's over 50 than someone who's under 50? I've done a lot of Googling and jobs for people over 50. And I've used AI to generate a list of jobs for people over 50. And I've used ChatGPT and I've done this to see what they suggest the jobs are. And it always comes back to the same list. And the list is things like customer service representative, data analyst, Lyft driver, caregiver. I mean, things that you would not have considered when you were under 50. I mean, some people would, that those are good jobs for people, but if that's not your area, that's the type of, it's kind of these entry level jobs that get suggested. And that's surprising to me because you're not, when you're over 50, you're not entry level. You've been working for a while and you have more than entry level skills. It turns out that and I don't remember where I saw this, that the number one job in America is insurance sales agent. Um, that's that's something worth pursuing. It's, you can make commissions. I mean, personally, the Medicare agent I used to help me find Medicare options for my mother, for myself, I didn't pay him anything. So he's getting paid by a variety of different insurers, and it seems to be a pretty viable profession. So that's something. But I think, look for the same job you would have looked for when you were under 50. Now, if you're over 60, over 65, that's kind of a different thing. Then you might want to start looking for something that's a little bit of a slow down type of job, a step down, something you can do part-time. And I think we talked about some of that earlier. There are a lot of things you can look for in that category. I would say Google it. If you go to things like retiredbrains.com and retirementjobs.com, they will list out jobs that are designed for people over 50. But in general, I would say if you're just over 50, don't look for jobs for people over 50. Look for jobs. That's it.
Along those lines, Kim, if I'm somebody over 50 who has had a professional career, do I need to settle for a lesser job as I get older?
Oh gosh, wow. No, never settle. Don't settle. On the other hand, I went through this whole thought process when I was laid off at, being over 60 and laid off, and I started job hunting. And I would actually have recruiters say, well, I'm not sure you have XYZ skill, but we have these other jobs that you should consider. They might be below your salary range. And there were jobs that were, 4 levels lower than what I held previously. And I entertained the idea of maybe doing that. It was sort of a, well, I only want to work for a few more years. So maybe I'll take this project manager job and just get a paycheck and healthcare benefits, and that'll be fine with me. And it was so depressing to go through. I actually interviewed for one of these jobs, and it was very depressing. The people who were interviewing me, who I would be reporting to, had less experience than I have. I didn't necessarily think the same way, and I realized that I couldn't do it. When I can't check my ego at the door, some people can, I'm not one of them. I can't just check my ego at the door and report to someone who has less experience than I have just because I want a paycheck. And I decided to sacrifice having a paycheck and go to work for myself because I didn't want to settle. And I don't believe that anyone should settle for a job that is less than their capabilities, unless you just, you have a spouse or a child with a terminal illness or an expensive illness. You absolutely have to get those healthcare benefits. You absolutely have to get a paycheck. Then get a job. Take care of yourself financially. So in a perfect world, don't settle. Have confidence and faith in yourself and do what you're capable of. But if you absolutely need that paycheck and you can't wait for the better job, then take that lesser job and keep your eyes open for the next big thing for yourself.
That's great advice, Kim. I know we're getting to the near end of our podcast. Before I ask you for your final thoughts, I'd like to talk a little about AI. Is AI making it easier or harder for people over 50 to find work? And can it assist over 50 job seekers to find jobs?
Oh gosh, such such a good topic. Um, AI is new. It's exciting. It's a little bit scary. It's scary in a lot of ways because people are using AI, putting things out on the internet that are not factual, that there's no basis for what's out there. So that's the scary side of AI, is that people find something on the internet, they Google it, they think it's fact, and there's actually no factual basis. There are even sources cited. AI will generate this information came from the book All About AI by Bob Smith. And there's no such book. And there's probably a Bob Smith, but Bob Smith didn't write this fake book. So AI is scary in that way. The managing the intellectual property that's a whole other big topic. And there are so many webinars, there's so much information about there. And I urge people to get educated. Even CNN and 60 Minutes have run pieces on AI that are terrific, great education. So learn about it. The second thing is AI will replace jobs. I read at one source, who knows how valid the source was, right? But I read that AI stands to replace as many as 3 million jobs in the United States over the next several years. So AI is there. It's not going anywhere. It's not regulated. So know what it is. But the second thing, the benefit is you can use AI to help you get a job in a number of ways. One, use AI tools. Udely is one that I mentioned. There are others that aren't coming to me off the top of my head, but you can use an AI tool to grab the job description and then have AI rewrite your resume for you to bring those keywords into your resume. So use an AI tool that says, look at this job description, pull out the keywords, and maybe the keyword is cycle time reduction or whatever the keyword is. You can tell I have an operations background. Anyway, it will take those keywords and then go through your resume and figure out, where can I interject the words cycle time reduction into my resume, or whatever the words are. You can also feed your resume into an AI tool like ChatGPT or Bing or whatever tool or even just Google Workspace, and paste your resume in and say, rewrite this resume to include the following keywords. So you can actually use AI to rewrite your resume for you. You can use AI to write a cover letter for you. However, strong insistence, if you do use AI to rewrite your resume, go use something like undetectable.ai. It's a great tool that's out there. It's not free, but it's not super expensive. Plop your resume in there, plop your cover letter in there and say, detect AI. And it will tell you, yes, we can tell this was written by AI. Then humanize it. You can ask this tool to humanize your cover letter. It'll humanize it. And then you've got a cover letter that sounds like it was written by a human. Whatever you have AI generate, rewrite it. Go in, change it, just take the ideas, the thoughts, maybe the flow, and then put it in your own words. So use AI to find a job, use AI to update your resume, use AI to find job descriptions that match your resume. And that's kind of my best advice. There are a lot of webinars out there. Visit riffonjobs.com. I think we posted one of the YouTube videos all about leveraging AI to find work and to practice interviewing. So lots out there. Use it. Make AI your friend. that's
Kim.
Yeah.
That is so fascinating. Thank you for that. As we bring our podcast to a close here, what are some final thoughts you can share for people who are over 50 and looking for jobs?
Oh, this is such a cliche, but age is just a number. So you are as young as you feel. Don't ever apologize. Don't be apologetic. Don't allow yourself to be self-conscious about your age. Just say, wow, I have done A, B, C, D, E. I've got this great experience, and sell it. And then most of all, leverage your soft skills. Soft skills are your communication skills, teamwork, collaboration, team building, management of people. I think I said communications. So really stress those soft skills that you have that an employer would be happy to have on the team. And then retool, earn certificates, get badges, and sell what you know and what you can do. And that's it.
Kim, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on job searching over 50. Please visit us at riffonjobs.com, and thank you very much.
And let's remember to tell people to please follow us on Spotify, Riff on Jobs, and follow us on YouTube, Riff on Jobs. Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
Alex.
you.